He left me for a better life. Until he saw what I built without him. The day he walked out, he didn't even close the door behind him. He just looked at me with this cold, empty face and said, "I want a better life." As if I was the problem. As if the life we built together was nothing. I remember standing there, frozen, my hands shaking. I had spent years supporting him, holding the house together, pushing him to chase his dreams. But when it was my turn to grow, he said I was dragging him down. That sentence burned into my chest. I didn't cry, not that day. I just watched him leave and told myself I would not break. I didn't know how, but I knew one thing for sure, he would regret ever thinking I wasn't good enough. I just had to figure out how to rise from the ground he left me on. The next morning, I woke up to silence. No footsteps, no morning chatter, no shared coffee smell. Just me. It felt heavy at first, like the walls were closing in. He took almost everything, his clothes, the money in our shared account, even the blender I bought. He didn't even leave a note. But as I sat on the edge of the bed, I realized something important. He had taken everything he thought mattered, except me. And maybe I was the biggest thing he underestimated. I started with small steps. I made a list of the things he always told me I couldn't do. You can't run a business. You're too soft to handle pressure. You don't have what it takes. I looked at every line and felt fire in my chest. That morning, I promised myself I would prove every single one wrong. I didn't have much money left, so I picked up shifts at a small local shop. It wasn't glamorous, but it kept me moving. The owner, an older woman, noticed how fast I learned things. She taught me how to talk to customers, how to manage stock, and how to negotiate prices. I didn't plan to stay forever, but I soaked up everything like a sponge. Every night, I came home tired but determined. I searched online for courses, cheap ones, and taught myself skills he always claimed were too big for me. I learned budgeting, branding, and basic web design. I didn't know what I would build yet, but I could feel something forming inside me. Something strong. Something new. Working those long days helped clear my mind. It also made something else clear. He didn't leave to find a better life. He left because he thought I couldn't create one. One day at the shop, a customer asked if we knew anyone who made custom gift baskets. The owner pointed at me and said, "She can do it." I almost panicked. But she smiled like she believed in me, so I agreed. That night, I stayed up arranging the basket. I used old ribbons, leftover wrappers, and a box I repainted. When I delivered it, the customer looked shocked. "You made this?" she asked. When I nodded, she ordered 3 more. That was the spark. Word spread fast. People wanted more baskets, birthdays, baby showers, office gifts. I realized I had a skill I never knew I could use. Each order built my confidence. I opened a tiny page online and posted photos. Orders trickled in slowly, then faster. I wasn't rich yet, but for the first time in a long time, I felt like I was building something real. With every new order, I pushed myself harder. I improved my designs, found cheaper suppliers, and learned how to take better photos. My tiny online page started attracting attention. People loved that everything was handmade and personal. I worked late into the night, sometimes until my eyes hurt. But unlike before, the work didn't feel like a burden. It felt like growth. I started saving money again, something he always controlled when we were together. I opened a small savings account and put in every spare coin. I didn't tell anyone about my progress. It felt like my own secret strength. The shop owner watched me quietly, always smiling. One afternoon, she said, "You know you're going to outgrow this place soon, right?" I laughed, but deep down, I hoped she was right. I wanted to build something bigger than just baskets. I wanted a life he couldn't imagine. 3 months passed before I heard anything about him. A mutual friend mentioned he had moved in with someone else. Someone who, apparently, had connections and a better lifestyle. The words stung a little, but not the way they used to. I wasn't the same person he walked away from. Instead of getting angry, I worked harder. I upgraded my business page, designed my own logo, and started planning new product ideas. Every time I felt tired, I remembered how he looked at me when he said he wanted a better life. That memory became fuel. I didn't want him back. I didn't want revenge. I wanted growth. Quiet, powerful growth that spoke for itself. And slowly, it started happening. Orders doubled that month. Then tripled. People were tagging friends, sharing my page, saying my work felt warm and thoughtful. It felt like proof that I wasn't small at all. The shop owner called me into her office one day. She handed me a small envelope. I opened it and saw a check, my first bonus. "You earned it," she said. I almost cried. Not because of the money, but because someone believed in me without asking for anything. I used the money to rent a tiny workspace, just one room, barely big enough for a table and shelves. But it was mine. I painted the walls and set up everything carefully. When I stepped back and looked at the room, I felt proud. I posted a picture of the new workspace on my page. People loved it, and the orders grew again. I no longer felt like the woman he abandoned. I felt like a woman standing on her own 2 feet. And even though I didn't know it yet, the life I was building was about to get much bigger. One evening, as I packed orders in my new workspace, my phone buzzed. A message. From him. My heart skipped, not because I missed him, but because I didn't expect it. It said, "Hey, can we talk?" I stared at it for a long time. "Why now?" I didn't reply. Instead, I kept working. I wasn't the woman waiting for explanations anymore. 2 days later, he sent another message, "I heard you're doing well." That made me pause. How did he hear? From who? Suddenly it hit me, he must have seen the posts, the shares, the growth. He must have realized the better life he ran to wasn't so golden. I didn't know what he wanted, but something in me stayed calm. Let him watch. Let him wonder. The life I was building wasn't for him. It was for a week past before I finally opened his messages again. Not to reply, just to read. They were getting longer. "I've been thinking a lot," one said. Another read, "Maybe we should meet." I didn't answer. I had orders to finish, customers to reply to, deliveries to schedule. My life was full and moving fast. I didn't want to slow down for someone who once left without a second thought. One evening, while arranging a basket, I realized something important. I wasn't afraid of him anymore. I wasn't afraid of being alone. I had built something solid, something real. And he must have sensed that because later that night, he sent another message, "I miss the way you supported me." That one made me laugh softly. He missed the version of me that held him up, not the woman I was now. My online page exploded unexpectedly after a small influencer shared my work. Orders came in faster than I could handle. My phone didn't stop buzzing. I had messages from people across the city wanting bulk gifts for events. I almost couldn't believe it. I hired a teenager from the neighborhood to help with packaging. That tiny workspace felt too small now, but I squeezed everyone in. I started waking up early, sleeping late, and filling notebooks with ideas. It felt like my world was expanding. People weren't just buying my baskets, they were rooting for me. They shared my story, or at least, the part they knew. And every time they did, I felt a little more powerful. The success didn't erase the pain he caused, but it rewrote the ending. The life he left behind was becoming something he couldn't even imagine. The messages from him kept coming, but they changed in tone. They went from confident to curious, from curious to soft, and then finally to desperate. "Can we please talk? I'm going through a lot. You were the only one who understood me." I didn't reply. I didn't feel angry, just uninterested. One afternoon, a friend called and said she saw him working at a small car wash. Apparently the better life he left for had kicked him out. The woman he moved in with had found someone wealthier. I didn't know how to feel. Part of me thought I should feel pity, but I didn't. Instead, I felt a strange calm. Life had simply done what it does, revealed the truth. I kept working, packing orders while humming to myself. Growth didn't need revenge. It was loud all by itself. My workspace was getting too tight. Boxes piled everywhere, and I barely had room to move. So I took a risk. I looked for a small shop to rent. The owner of the store I worked at hugged me when I told her. "Go," she said. "You're ready." I found a place, a little corner shop with big windows and creaky floors. It wasn't fancy, but when I walked inside, my heart knew it was right. I signed the papers with hands trembling in excitement. I spent the next week painting the walls, setting up shelves, arranging my products like they were pieces of my heart on display. When everything was done, I stood in the middle of the shop and felt my chest swell. If he could see me now, he wouldn't believe it. The woman he left behind was owning a business. The grand opening wasn't grand at all. No balloons, no crowd, no music. Just a few neighbors, a soft smile from the old shop owner, and my first walk as the owner of my own store. But the simple start didn't matter. What mattered was the feeling, steady, proud, unstoppable. Customers came in throughout the day, bought items, took photos, and shared them online. The shop felt alive. Later that afternoon, when I checked my phone, I saw his name again. "I heard you opened a store. Congratulations." For a moment, I stood still. The old me would have replied politely. But the new me simply locked my phone and kept helping customers. His words meant nothing now. My life was no longer tied to him. Every sale, every smile, every step proved it. A few days later, he showed up. I didn't expect it. I was behind the counter arranging ribbons when he walked through the door. He looked thinner, tired, smaller somehow. For a second, my heart stuttered, not from feelings, but from shock. He forced a smile and said, "Wow, you're really doing well." I nodded but didn't say much. He looked around slowly, taking in every shelf, every handmade basket, every sign of growth. "I'm proud of you," he said. The words felt strange coming from him. Like they didn't belong to his mouth. I just replied, "Thanks," because I didn't know what else to say. He tried to talk more, but a customer walked in. I turned to help them, and he stood there for a moment before quietly leaving. That's when I realized something huge: I didn't need closure. His exit was closure. After he visited, business grew even more. People who saw the store online came to support. Some said they were inspired. Others said they loved seeing someone rise after being abandoned. I didn't share the full story, but somehow it spread in pieces. I didn't mind, it was my truth. One afternoon, while packing a big order for an office event, I noticed something strange. I wasn't thinking about him anymore. Not his words, not how he left, not how he treated me. My mind was full of colors, ribbons, scents, ideas, dreams. I had outgrown the version of myself that needed someone beside me to feel strong. I realized that sometimes life breaks you just to rebuild you in a way you never imagined. And I was finally beginning to see the beauty in that. But life wasn't done surprising me. A large company reached out, asking if I would supply gift baskets for their holiday event. Hundreds of them. I almost dropped my phone. I called the number twice just to make sure it wasn't a joke. It wasn't. They wanted my designs because they were warm and personal. I walked around my shop in circles, trying not to scream out of excitement. This contract could change everything. It could lift my business to a whole new level. I spent the next days planning, listing materials, making samples, and meeting with their team. They loved everything. When I signed the official contract, I felt something in me shift again, another level unlocked. The life he left behind wasn't just growing, it was blooming. The night after signing the contract, I got another message from him. This one was long. He apologized for everything, for leaving, for blaming me, for taking the money, for choosing someone else. He said he was confused back then and going through things. He said he wished we could start over. I read it carefully, without anger, without sadness. Just clarity. I didn't reply. I didn't need to. My silence was the answer. I looked around my shop, my shelves, my work, my future, and realized something important. I didn't want him to see me as a second chance. I wasn't a backup plan. I was a woman who built a life from scratch, and now, I was finally standing in it proudly. The holiday contract pushed me into a new world of pressure. My small shop turned into a full production zone. Boxes stacked to the ceiling, ribbons everywhere, scents of soaps, chocolates, and candles mixing in the air. I hired 2 more helpers, both eager teenagers who wanted to learn. We worked late into the night. I was tired, but it was a sweet kind of tired, the kind that comes from building something meaningful. Every time I looked around at the busy shop, I remembered the quiet room he left me in the morning he walked out. That memory used to sting, but now it felt distant, like a life that belonged to someone else. I had come far, and I was still rising. The company posted my baskets on their social media page, tagging my shop. Within hours, everything blew up. My page gained thousands of new followers in a single night. People commented things like, "So inspiring, look at her go," and "This is what growth looks like." I didn't expect the support to feel so emotional, but it did. I realized people weren't just buying products, they were buying into the story of a woman who refused to break. Journalists reached out. Bloggers wrote about me. My shop became a little landmark. Every time I unlocked the door each morning, I felt gratitude rise in my chest. The life I built was louder than any words he ever said about me. One afternoon, I stepped outside after a long day to get fresh air. That's when I saw him again. He was standing across the street, watching the shop quietly. He didn't look angry or proud, just defeated. When he noticed I saw him, he raised his hand slowly, almost like he wanted to wave but wasn't sure if he should. I didn't move. I didn't walk toward him. I didn't owe him that. After a moment, he crossed the road. "You've changed," he said softly. "You're different." I nodded. I had to be. He tried to talk more, asking if we could find a way back. But I shook my head politely. I wasn't rude, I was simply sure. "I'm not going back to what broke me," I said. The truth was simple, and it set me free. After that day, something inside me fully closed. Not in a bitter way, in a peaceful one. I felt like I had finally stepped out of the shadow of my past. I no longer checked my phone hoping he would leave me alone. I didn't replay old arguments. I didn't fear seeing him in public. I was too busy growing. I launched a new product line, small personalized boxes for kids' birthdays. They sold out in 2 days. Parents sent videos of their children opening them, smiling wide. Those videos made me tear up. I realized that I wasn't just running a business anymore. I was creating something that added joy to people's lives. Something meaningful, something lasting. And I did it without him, without his support, without his belief. A few weeks later, the shop owner who first hired me visited. She stood in the doorway, looking around with the warmest smile. "I knew you'd do it," she said. I hugged her tightly. She was one of the few people who saw me when I felt invisible. We talked for a long time. I told her about the contract, the expansion plans, the challenges. She listened proudly, like family. Before she left, she said, "Never forget who you became on your own." That line stayed with me for days. It reminded me that my strength wasn't a sudden miracle. It was built slowly, painfully, with small steps on lonely nights. And now, it was shining. As the year went on, the business kept growing. I saved enough to open a second workspace, this one bigger, brighter, and closer to the main road. I hired more helpers and trained them carefully. Some days, I stood in the middle of the new room and just breathed in the feeling of it. I used to think success was far away, something only other people reached. But now, I was living in the middle of it. People invited me to speak at local events. They wanted me to share my journey. I never mentioned his name. The story wasn't about him. It was about the version of me that rose after he left. The version he never believed I could become. Then came the biggest moment of all. A well-known lifestyle magazine featured my business on their front page, calling me a symbol of quiet strength. When the issue came out, customers crowded into the shop to buy copies. My helpers celebrated. My phone buzzed nonstop with congratulations. I went home that night and sat on the floor with the magazine in my hands. I thought of the morning he walked out, calling our life not enough. I thought of how small I felt standing there alone. And now, here I was. On the cover of a magazine, running a growing brand, with a future brighter than anything we had together. I didn't feel angry or smug. I felt healed. A few days later, he sent one last message. Just 5 words, "I'm happy for you now." I didn't reply. Not because I was bitter, but because I didn't need to. My life was no longer tied to his voice, his choices, or his presence. I had built my own path. I had created beauty from brokenness. I stood up when he expected me to fall. And the best part? I did it quietly, steadily, without shouting for anyone's approval. He left me for what he thought was a better life. But the real better life was the one I built without him, brick by brick, dream by dream, and step by step into the woman I was always meant to become.